The recall election is just a few days away.
That's right, and while the candidates don't have any more face-to-face debates planned, you do have one more chance to hear the candidates in depth on the issues. Fox 11's Robert Hornacek explains.
This Sunday morning on CW14 Focus, I'll be joined by Republican Governor Scott Walker and by his Democratic challenger, Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett. The program is not really a debate, it's more of an in-depth conversation where I'll speak one-on-one with each candidate.
This is CW14 Focus with Robert Hornacek.
I asked each candidate similar questions on the major issues in the race, like the debate over jobs.
I ask people, just look at the facts. Don't look at the hype, don't look at the commercials. Compare the numbers. Over 96% of the employers surveyed give the numbers that show we gained, or a sample of 3.5% on a monthly basis that showed something very different. I think most people believe the more accurate sample isn't just a sample, it's the real numbers.
And I think people are smart enough to say, wow, he came up with those numbers 20 days before the election? That's amazing. Well, there's a reason for that. And he had the commercials cut by the time the numbers hit the press. So clearly there was some coordination that was going on there.
We talked about the role of outside money in the race.
I believe the taxpayers, the hardworking taxpayers at the local level, should be the ones calling the shots, not a handful of special interests. And that's something I'm willing to stand up for time and time again.
You have talked a lot about the special interests and often refer to them as out-of-state special interests. At the same time, you've raised a lot of money from out of state. A lot of special interest money is being spent on your behalf. What's the difference?
Well, a couple things. One, I wouldn't have to raise or spend a penny. We wouldn't be having this election if it wasn't for the initial investment of the money from Washington, from the special interests, the big government unions in particular.
When it comes to the big out-of-state unions, he's got the wrong guy, because I wasn't the guy who was getting that money. And if you look at the primary, I was outspent in the primary. And so he complains a lot about those big public unions. Let's be honest, I wasn't their candidate. And so it's difficult for him to rail against him now when I'm the one who emerged from the primary.
As for the controversial changes to collective bargaining for public employees, Barrett says he wants to undo the changes. Walker says it's time to move on.
And I don't want to go through it again. And so what I've said is Scott Walker has started the Civil War. It's been a civil war, and I think people throughout the state would agree with it. And frankly, as I talk to people around the state, they're tired of all of this. They're tired of all of this. And I'll end the Civil War. But I think it's fair that people have the right to organize. I think it's right that people have the right to bargain.
When the election passes, we can move on and move forward. I'm the only candidate who wants to move forward. I don't want to replay the debate of last year. My opponent wants to literally go back and undo collective bargaining, which means the whole same debate all over again. It means if he was to win, we'd have probably a year later a whole other attempt for a recall. I think most people in this state, including a lot of independents and discerning Democrats, want to move on. They want to move forward.
To watch my complete interviews with Walker and Barrett, be sure to tune in to CW14 Focus Sunday morning at 10:30 on CW14. The interviews will also be available online Sunday. Just go to CW14online.com and click on local shows. For Fox 11 News, I'm Robert Hornacek.
The candidates and key election issues were highlighted on special assignment this past week as well. To check out what the candidates had to say about jobs, collective bargaining, education, and health care, just go to our website, fox11online.com, and click on the On Assignment tab.